Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at 3 different scopes from Primary Arms at different price points. Okay, now the focus of today's video, what I'm trying to figure out, right, and this is for the purpose of a larger review on this Primary Arms 1-10 SLX 1-10 by 28 second focal plane. Okay, so this is the focus of this review process that I'm going through. So this is a 10x magnification, and what I'm doing is I'm comparing it to a more expensive scope. This is the Primary Arms M8. This is a $1,500 scope over here, right? This the glass in this is made in Japan. It's supposed to be like, you know, really, it's supposed to be better glass, right? It's supposed to give you a much more clear image. And what I'm trying to figure out today is, are you better off getting higher magnification, right, in the 10x here, or better glass and maybe a little bit less magnification? What's going to give you a better result? Okay, and then over here I've got the Primary Arms 1-8 ACSS. This is the first one, right? So this is the kind of like the original variable scope that they put out there. Okay, so this one here is about $300. The middle one is $450, and this M8 over here is $1,500. Okay, so quite a jump there in the price. And the way that I'm going to go about objectively determining this today is I've been shooting targets out at 100 yards and 110 yards. Right, I actually started at 65, then I went 75, then 100, and then 110. And what I'm doing is I'm measuring at what distance can I see the 22 caliber holes. Okay, so you know, at what distance. And what I'm finding, right, just to kind of jump ahead a little bit, what I'm finding is that at the 110 yards, I can see the bullet holes pretty clearly with the, not super clearly, but I can see them pretty clearly with the 10x magnification in the $450 scope. But with the 8x, I'm struggling to see those bullet holes. Okay, even though it's Japanese glass, just because it's a lower magnification, I'm having a harder time at the 110 yards seeing those bullet holes. Okay, and of course with the cheaper one, same deal. I mean, with all 3 scopes, I can see them at 100 yards. It's just on, you know, it's just when I go up to 110 yards, that's the point at where I see a difference, where I can barely see it with the $300 one. I can barely see it with the $1,500 one over here. Okay, both of those being 8x, but with the 10x at $450, I can't see the holes. Okay, so before I go any further, let me give you guys a look inside of the scopes. Let me zoom these guys down to 1 power. Get them all down to 1 power, so you can get an idea of what we're looking at through the glass. All right, so first let's start with the expensive one, right? The $1,500 one over here. We can line you up. Why is this thing giving me a hard time? Hold on. Okay, right. Oh, there it goes. Okay. I had to get the right eye relief. So the funny thing is with these variable scopes, the eye relief is actually a little further back. Okay, there it is. Okay, so when I get this right, you know, I'm trying to rest this on my shoulder a little bit. Get 2 hands on this camera. Yeah, there it is. There you go. Okay, so that's what I want to show you. So you see how it's like the ring of the scope almost disappears. Right? It almost disappears. And then you see that reticle over there? Okay, so here's the thing. As you zoom in with this, you see a lot more information. Basically, you're not just zooming in on a target, you're also zooming in on the reticle, right? And then more information starts to become available as you zoom in. You see subtensions. You're able to do your range estimation, your bullet drop. You got a, you got your wind holes over there. So as you zoom in, you're not only zooming in on the, there it goes, on the target. You're also zooming in on the reticle itself. And again, you can see how it goes almost edge to edge over here, right? You got really thin ring. Zoom you back out. All right, so when you go all the way out, basically you see a duplex reticle, right? Because all those details kind of, they shrink down, and you got yourself a large duplex reticle. All right, so let's go. That's the $1,500 one. Okay, let's take a look now at the $450 one. Okay, so first of all, with this, there you go. Get the back out a little bit. So with this, right, you can see how there's a little bit more of you can see the scope ring, right? So no matter if I go in or out, you're going to see a little bit more scope ring on this. So the scope itself it appears thicker. All right, you can see the scope a little bit. Now with this, as you zoom in, the target changes side, but your reticle does not. So your reticle stays the same. So you're going to see the same image all the way in, all the way out, same image. Now, in order for the values in the in the mill grid and all that, in order for that to have any value, you got to be zoomed all the way out. If you're not, those values are off. Okay. Whereas with the other one, with the $1,500 one, which is a first focal plane, those values, because the reticle is changing size as as you're zooming in and out, the values are, they maintain their value, right? With this, the values only are true if you zoom all the way out. Now, the only thing that's accurate is the tip of the chevron, because that's basically accurate at all magnifications. Okay. Now, one of the things that you notice with the second focal plane, if I'm a little bit off, you can see how you can kind of see the reticle a little bit. So you can kind of see the reticle. And what I find with the first focal plane, if you're a little bit off, right, if you're in the shadows, you don't see anything. All right, so you don't see the reticle at all. Actually, let me light this up and you'll get a better idea of what I mean. So if I light this up, all right, so right there, you see how it's lit? All right, so if I go into the shadows, that disappears completely, right? So you don't see the illumination when I'm offline in the shadows. Okay, but with this one, let me turn this one on. Okay, with the second focal plane, okay, see, even though I'm off, you can see that reticle in the shadows. Okay, and this is going to help you. Like, let's say if you're off, like if you're just offline, like right now, right? So even though all I see is black, I can see the reticle. Well, my left eye is seeing the target, and your brain combines the two images. So for moving and shooting, this one over here helps you get on target faster. Okay, so that's an important consideration, and this is like one of those areas where the second focal plane is actually doing better. The cheaper $450 scope is actually beating out the $1,500 scope, because with this one, if you're off, you don't see any reticle. You got to get your head in the right position, because otherwise you got no aiming point. But you do have that almost like that ring almost completely disappears. It goes like almost to the edge. Okay, so now with the $300 one, well, here I'll show you what this one looks like. So again, this is also second focal plane. All right. So with this, you see a much bigger, even a bigger ring. Whoops, position. So, okay, there you go. So with this, you see an even bigger ring, more wall. So you don't go like edge to edge with this. There it is. Okay, that's like as good as it's going to get. you're gonna have that. Lost it. So you're gonna have that ring. So this one also has the least amount of information in the reticle. I mean, you've got. Let me zoom this in a little bit. So as you zoom in, so again, the reticle does not change. Only the target changes, basically. But if you put the, but you got the same thing. Like if you're completely off, you can see how you're going to see that reticle in the shadow. So same thing. If you're off, if your left eye can see the target and right eye can see that red dot, it doesn't matter if you see the red dot in the black. Your brain's going to combine the two images, and you'll be able to get that, get your bullets to go where you want them to go. Okay, so in that respect, the $1,500 ones is the least forgiving. Okay, that's the least forgiving. If you're off, if you're not like if you're not sensitive so that you can see your reticle, you're not going to be able to get on target. Okay, so let me put this on the stand. Give me a second. Okay, so it's on the stand. So this isn't really meant to be the review of this scope or any of the scopes. This is basically just to be showing you guys the testing process. Like later on when I do a comprehensive review on this, this is part of the information that I'm going to be bringing out to you guys, and I want you guys to understand, to kind of get an idea of how I come about getting this information. So this is the $450 one, 10x. All right, this is the 10 magnification. We're going to zoom all the way up to 10. Okay, and I've already put a couple of bullets down there. So when I look in this graph, right, at 100 yards, okay, I can clearly see my bullet holes on the paper from earlier at 100 yards. And now when I go to 110 yards, okay, I got my target out there, and at 110 yards with the 10x magnification, I can see the bullet holes on the paper. I'll take a couple more shots. All right, so I can see the bullet holes. Now, it's starting to get a little, a little darker now because we're getting into the evening. When the sun is out, I can see them more clearly, right? Now as it's starting to get darker, if it gets cloudier, it's harder to see them, okay? So the light makes a difference. When I was testing this out last night, as it was starting to get darker, like I couldn't even, like right now I can clearly see the bullet holes at 100 yards with all three guns, right? Last night I could not see them at 100 yards as it's starting getting a little darker. I had to come all the way back to 75 yards. So so at 75 yards, I was able to see it with the 10x. I wasn't able to see it with the other two. Okay, I had to go to 65 yards so I could see it with all three. So the lighting conditions are going to change at what distance you can see those bullet holes. But this is an objective way to basically talk about glass clarity, because a lot of times people talk about glass clarity in different reviews, and it's just like, I have really no way of quantifying it, being able to compare one to the other. So I think this is a good way to quantify it, right? Because, basically same set of eyes now, right? I'm using my eyes on all three guns. If somebody with better eyes than me, they might see what I'm seeing, a little further out. Like they might get the same results at 120 or 130 yards. Somebody that has worse eyes than me, they might have to come back to 75 yards, okay? But right now we got the same set of eyes, same lighting conditions on all three guns. What I'm going to do is I'm going to now take this scope over here. This is the $1,500 one. Okay. Okay, $1,500 one. I'm going to zoom out. Okay, so at 100 yards, I can see my bullet holes. I can see my bullet holes at 100 yards. It's starting, not as clear as I could, about an hour ago, but I can still see them at 100 yards. At 110 yards, I can barely see them. I barely see them. So even though this is, Japanese glass, approved by the Emperor of Japan himself, the 10 power allows me to see the bullet holes at 110 yards. The Japanese glass at a lower magnification doesn't allow me to see the bullet holes as clearly. Okay, that's objective. That's just what it is. Let's take some shots over there. So I can see the bullet holes. Let me go back to this one for a second. Yeah, I mean, big difference. When you go from the 8X to the 10X, 10X is big difference. So this is the answer to this question. Which is better, more magnification or better glass quality, right? Japanese, European glass quality. Because I assume that this one over here is made in China or the Philippines. What I'm seeing between these two scopes is the 10X, the cheaper glass, but that has a higher magnification, is allowing me to see the bullet holes at 110 yards better than the Japanese glass over here. Okay, so let me go back to this one over here. This is the first one. This is the the $300 one, the 1-8 ACSS. Let's look at that. Zoom up. So at 100 yards, I can see my bullet holes. I could see them more clearly earlier when it was a little brighter out. Sometimes if you adjust the focus, it might, but I've already done this several times, so it's in the right place. So at 110 yards, I can kind of see the bullet holes, but there's no question that the 10X is allowing me to see the bullet holes the best. There's no question. This is allowing me to see the bullet holes at 110 yards better than the $300 scope, that's 8X, better than the $1,500 scope, that's 8X. Okay, the 10X is winning out. So there's many good reasons to pay the $1,500 like I did over here. There's a lot of good features about this scope over here. However, if your sole interest is, being able to see detail at distance, okay, the greatest amount of detail, I can tell you from this test right here, and I've done this like 2 days in a row, different lighting conditions, different time of day, the results are the same. If you're interested in seeing the most amount of detail at the most distance, the 10X, even though it might be made in China or Philippines or I don't know, Mexico, where the hell they make this, I don't care where it's made. On this primary arms SLX 1-10 by 28, I can see more detail with this $450 scope than I can with that $1,500. And they're both made by primary arms. All these scopes are made by primary arms. So it's not like I'm trying to bash one company or anything like that, okay? I'm just doing a comparison. What we're really talking about is, again, the focus of this video is it worth paying more for a lens that's made in a more prestigious country, right? Like, I guess, as far as like glass making, Japan and in Europe, they say that the glass is supposed to be of a better quality. But practically speaking, as a guy that basically pulls the triggers here and shoots at distance on a daily basis, the 10X is beating out the lower power, better glass. So my thoughts on this, and again, I'm just collecting information here to roll into an overall review that I do on this scope. This is an excellent scope so far. I really like the fact that $450. It's got lots of features in the reticle for range estimation, for wind holes, for communication. Right, you got a mil grid so you can communicate with other people, tell them where to look. You got movers. You can. There's mover holes in here. So so far this is proving to be an excellent value. And the other thing I've noticed is with this one over here with the $300 one, right? Because the question becomes like, okay, if all I need is a bullet drop, right, and some wind holes, right? Should I use can I go to the $300 one? Okay. Well, one of the things I'm finding with the $300 one is at distance, a lot of times when I get on the gun, right, and I look through the glass, I see shadow. It takes me longer to get my head in the right position so that shadow goes away. Okay, so with this, I see at 8x, I see more shadow. With the $450 one here, right, at 10x, okay, when I get in there, I don't see that shadow. Like, I mean, I can if I'm like way off, but I'm able to recover a lot faster, right? And that shadow goes away a lot faster than the $300 one. So even if you're not interested in all the additional features, it's worth paying. So far I'm gathering that it's worth paying that extra whatever $150, so that when you get on your scope, you can immediately find your target, and not see that shadow, right? And then with the $1,500 one, again, this is already zoomed up all the way. Okay, again, so not that again, I'm able to get on the gun, and there's like minimal shadow. So that's the difference. Like when you go down to the $300 one, you're gonna have scope shadow issues. When you get let's say when you go up to the $450 one, right, the scope shadow becomes less of an issue, and it's almost as good as this $1,500 one, right? I'm able to get on it pretty easily. Now, one of the interesting things as far as your field of view, right, when you're in max power, right, you'll notice with this 10 power scope, when you're looking out there, you seem to have a more narrow field of view, right? When I look through here, because basically I'm able to look at my trees. I got trees out there, and I can see, okay, when I look through this scope, I can see from this tree, I got this tree on this edge, that tree on the other edge, okay? So it seems with the 10 power, you have less of a field of view, right? I see less of my trees over there. However, when I zoom this to 8 power, and I make them all 8, now I see the same thing. I have the same field of view. So that's one of the things to be aware of, that when you're with the 10 power, you will have less of a field of view, right? Because you have more, because you got more magnification. But when you go down to 8 power, actually I went too far. When you go down to 8 power, which is right there, when you go to 8 power, all of a sudden the field of view on all these scopes is about the same. I haven't been able to tell a difference, but that's one of the things that might stand out to you initially when you get on the scope is, hey, this seems to be a lot more narrow out there. Well, it's because it's a 10 power. If you go to 8, you're gonna have you're gonna have the same field of view as the others. Now, one of the things with the second focal planes, right? If you're using the bullet drop, you can only the tip of the chevron is accurate if you're at anything other than max power. Okay, the tip of the chevron is accurate at all powers. In order for the bullet drop to be useful, you have to be at max magnification. If you forget to, you're going to be way off, right? If you're like at 6 power or something, and you try to use the bullet drop compensator on a second focal plane, you're going to be like way off, and it potentially dangerous, right? Because what's going to happen is as it shrinks, you're going to end up shooting way over your berm. So that's something that you got to be really careful with the second focal plane scopes. You have to make sure that if you're using the bullet drop, you have to be zoomed out all the way. The other thing you want to be careful of, because usually if I'm at a different location, I'm shooting, let's say like 300, 400, 500 yards. What I will typically do is I'll go to 3 power, and that will help me find my target out there, and then I'll zoom up once I find the target. Well, what happens is when you're in the scope and then you zoom up, right? A couple of times what I noticed is like I didn't move my hand all the way. So instead of going to all the way to up, I fell one short. So like instead of going to 8, I went to 7. I haven't had a chance to test this one out, but like on this scope over here, I noticed a couple of times, you know, when I was flipping this over from one, I didn't quite go all the way. I came up a little bit short, and that's, you know, I was missing what I thought were like pretty easy targets, you know, at an easy distance, you know, for what I was shooting at. And the reason was because I didn't crank all the way over. So that's one of the things you gotta make sure. You gotta make sure you crank all the way over if you're gonna be using that bullet drop, and especially if you're you know, going down the 4-power so that you can find your target, and then you zoom up, push it all the way over. Other thing worth mentioning is that I think Primary Arms did really good with the throw levers on these scopes, right? On both the $450 one and the $1,500 one have the same throw lever. The ones that they used on the original one, it was way too short. I had to put this extended throw lever on it. Then on the SLXs, they had one that was also really short. It's just really hard to work with. Now this one over here, I'm finding that, yeah, this is really comfortable to work with, but in some cases it's a little bit too long, and it can snag on stuff. And you know, I think with this $450 one, you know, with this, I think it's called the MS10, right? That's the $450 one, and the M8. I think they got it at the perfect length so that you can work with it. You got enough leverage there, but it's not so long that if you have it against your body, it's like digging into your chest. Okay, so they did really good with the length on these throw levers. So look forward to you know, I'm going to probably do a couple more videos on this as I go through the testing process. But this is a fun project. I'm really enjoying this. A lot of really cool stuff is coming out of this you know, this testing that I'm doing. One of the things, another thing worth mentioning is the adjustments. I'll do a separate video on the adjustments, but on the adjustments on the $450 one are in MOA. They're like a 1/2 inch at 100 yards, whereas with the $1,500 ones, they're in mil rads, right? So, which actually works out better because your mil grid is in mils. So what you can do is, since you can see your holes at 100 yards, right, you can use the mil grid to measure how many mils you're off, right? So let's say let's say you're 1 full mil off to the right. Well, then you know 1 full mil is 10 clicks. So you know so, or if you're a 1/2 mil, that's 5 clicks. So you can use your mil grid to adjust your turrets, because both your mil grid and your turrets on this scope are in mils, whereas with this one over here, the mil grid's in mils, right? But the turrets, the turrets are in MOA. You know, basically it's in, you know, it's a 1/2 inch at 100 yards. So these two aren't speaking the same language, which is fine. I mean, I've been, you know, using half MOA adjustments for many years, so I'm comfortable with it. But that's one of the, you know, that's one of the places where the $1,500 one is way better. I think that on this one, Primary Arms should have matched the turrets to the grid. This should have also been in mils, so that the turrets and the reticle are talking the same language. So, all right, talk to you all soon. Thank you very much for watching.